Kirsten Diprose is an award-winning journalist, podcaster, farmer, and Deakin alum whose career began with a clear ambition to work at the ABC. Kirsten has seen many sides of the industry, from a 10-year career at the national broadcaster to teaching journalism here at Deakin. Now she's completing a PhD on media in rural communities and building a podcast network to serve them. From the lands of the Wadawurrung people, this is Stories of Wonder. Kirsten Diprose, welcome to Stories of Wonder.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So let's start talking a little bit about your career as a journalist. You knew you wanted to be a journalist from a pretty early age, but not just anywhere, at the ABC. Why was that so clear to you?
Yeah, so I figured out I wanted to be a journalist at the age of 16, and I think I just fell in love with the ABC, which is interesting because my family were very much into Channel 9, which, you know, back in the 90s really produced some great stuff.
Yeah, it really was sort of the golden sort of home of a lot of the sparkliest and still very credible journalism.
Absolutely. You know, it came, I suppose the 80s is when all the money was around in media. People still talk about it, the good old days, and I was too young to ever have experienced that. But, you know, they had that Sunday morning show, which was brilliant. You know, Yarn Event was around. And I enjoyed those programs. But then I just kind of stumbled upon the ABC, started watching Media Watch, Four Corners.
Who was your Media Watch host in that era?
That era? Oh, so Jonathan Holmes was around, but who was before him?
Margaret.
No, she was after Jonathan, I reckon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, everyone's got their Media Watch kind of host that awakens them. But yeah, Media Watch.
Yes, Four Corners and 7:30, and I got to work on 7:30 as one of my first jobs while still at uni.
Wow, that's amazing.
With Kerry O'Brien.
Wow, well, that's how legendary.
It was pretty legendary. I was responsible for printing off his questions, and it was Arial black size 20 is what he liked. They were large printed.
I'm going to make note of that for my iPad over
Sorry,
here.
Kerry.
Kerry, if you're watching. Is that true? Can we fact check with you?
That's right.
Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing, like that you knew so early. Once you knew that was the dream, though, at the age of 16, how did you start to make a plan to make that happen?
Well, I suppose by year 12, you know, wanted to do well at university, looked up what the UAI is what they used to call it then. I suppose it's ATAR scores these days was. And I'm from Sydney, so New South Wales system, and wasn't sure if I wanted to go to UTS or Sydney Uni or whatever. Found out the marks were really high.
Oh, right.
Just because it's popular.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, so I'm going to have to work really, really hard, which I would have anyway. I was one of those, you know, bookish, nerdy people. So I was going to work hard anyway. But Sydney University, I knew, had a program where you could do an internship in your final year. So it was a 4-year degree. 4th year, they had an internship. And I thought, if I can get that for the ABC, then I'll get a foot in the door, because I didn't have any, I didn't know anyone. You know, I grew up in Western Sydney. I had no contacts. I was like, how am I going to get into the media? But this was a pathway. So I saw that at a young age, and that's what I want. I'm going to try and go for that internship. And if I get that, a door might open.
That is so much further ahead than, I don't know if it's all other students, but certainly myself when I was finishing year 12 was thinking. So that's pretty impressive. What did you do along the way to kind of get there? Like what subjects did you have to kind of nail in year 12, and did you get straight into the course you wanted?
Yeah, well, year 12, I really did what I liked, and I think that's really great advice. Like, if you know you need prerequisites, then I suppose do that. But because I knew I wanted to study journalism, do a media degree, I just concentrated on my strengths, which were history and English is what I love. So I did 4 units of English. I think I did 3 units of history. Well, I did ancient, modern, and then extension history is what they used to call it. And what else do you do? Oh, drama. And I must have done something else. But I dropped maths in year 11. And I had to work really hard at maths to be able to get an A, like really hard, about like 5 times harder than I did. And I remember getting a B and just being like, I can't, which is, I look back on that now and I don't regret my decision, but just because you're not good at something doesn't, like naturally good at something doesn't mean you can't be, you know, or it's not worthwhile. Like this is probably a broader discussion, isn't it, about like what's education for and, you know, is it purely to get into a university degree?
100%, yeah. You look back on, and especially after you've gone through a bit more life, after you've done your first university course, if you're, you know, lucky enough to do so, and it was all, but that just to get in, it was all centered around that ATAR or that score. Yeah. And all the decisions you made at the end of high school might have been about that. And then after you get through that first one, you realise, oh, there's a way to do what you want. There's some way, there's a pathway somewhere. Did it all have to be so stressful? Yeah, exactly. So I look back and I'm not sure. So you dropped maths.
I dropped maths, year
11.
And I didn't need it, like as in terms of my career. But, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about this later. I actually now use maths quite a bit, being on a farm now and looking after budgets and things and also on a board, you know, reading spreadsheets and reading budgets, you know, profit and loss and all of that. Yeah. Like I've really had to kind of go back to basics. Yeah.
Well, so you got into the course you wanted to. Along the way, did you volunteer anywhere? Were you out, you know, doing radio or doing local, I don't know, we have a local sort of community TV channel here. Like, what did you do?
Yes. So I was doing community radio at Air FM is what it was called. And now I think it's Penrith Valley FM or station or something. And it was fabulous. It was like this old like house. It used to be a house, you know, this kind of like 2 or 3 bedroom brick house. And it was converted into a community radio station. Still very much looked like a house. And you'd go in the back door and, one of the rooms had been, or 2 of the rooms had been converted to studios. And that's where I did my first show with a guy who is now on radio in Brisbane.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And there was another guy who now works at Nova. You've probably heard of him. His name's Smallsy.
Smallsy?
Yeah. This is this tiny little, you know, Penrith Valley radio stations. It's like amazing. So Smallsy is still going strong on, like he was on Nova for years and still is.
Shout out to Smallsy.
Oh yeah, I know. This is my claim to fame. Yeah. His real name's Kent and he's great. Anyway.
I wouldn't have picked that from Smallsy. Anyway, go on. Yep.
And then so I did a show called The World of Rock and Pop, and then I did another show when I was 15 called Pop Girls, which was with Angela Freno, who works in Ace Radio in Dubbo. I think she's the chief of staff, the last I heard.
Wow, the alumni is
hilarious.
Strong.
We're still all in radio.
Yeah. Pop Girls?
Oh, God. So they would have been like 2000, very 2000.
Very 2000, yeah, the era of all the pop stars. And so what did it teach you doing that? So what, you were like 15?
Yep, 15, 16. So I did my work experience there in year 10, which is how we how I got in, I suppose. And look, we just had fun. I'm sure it would be terrible to listen to now.
Well, we've got the tape. Play it.
I wish that was true. I'm sure my mum does somewhere have some tapes of it. Yeah.
We're onto it. Our researchers. Yeah. But you learned the basics, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we used to panel ourselves. And so this was in the days of so you'd have your CDs and you'd be charging up your CDs. There was a record player too. We didn't have any records. There was tapes. We rarely used those because they didn't sound as good as CDs. So I guess you learnt paneling. You learnt how to improvise. To fill the gaps. Learnt about even like sponsors and advertising on certain programs. Yeah, I might have made a comment off the cuff about a certain fast food outlet that I didn't like eating from, and then realised that they were like one of the sponsors or something. That was a good learning, like being aware of like how a program is funded and No, I learnt a lot and loved it. Like I did it right until on and off, depending on, what else I had on school and sport-wise, till probably first year university. I used to come back because I still lived at home my first year of university, and then even sometimes I used to come back and do guest shows just for the fun of it. Yeah.
That's really cool that you were able to stretch that experience throughout that period.
Yeah, and then I worked on 2SER, which is the Sydney University, not Sydney University, sorry. It was at the UTS building, and it was so it's like a community radio station for Sydney, kind of like 3RRR if you're more familiar with the Melbourne one. Yeah.
Really cool. And then it seems like, with all of this experience, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you were really focused on a career. Not everyone at that age is really dead set on knowing that they want to work, that they need to work, and picking what that was. I guess why was career so important to you at that age?
Oh, that's a big question. I don't know. I think I just found my passion and knew that's what I wanted to do. And I also knew there was no other option. Like, if I didn't work, what was I going to do? Like, the expectation was, I'd have to get a job after I finished school, and my parents had said to me, if you go to university, you can stay at home and we'll support you in that way. And I didn't have to pay board. But then I moved out after 2 years and paid my own rent after that. But, there was no other option. I needed a career.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do one that I liked.
Yep. There was no question about it.
Yeah.
Well, you did end up studying journalism, as you've mentioned, and you did end up getting an internship at the ABC.
Yes.
What was it like stepping into those hallowed halls when you eventually did?
Oh, amazing. I remember calling my mum and being like, she's like, how was it? And I'm like, I love it. It's so great. And, and I mean, it wasn't easy or, when you're in a completely new workplace and you're young and you don't have all the skills yet. But I just kind of took the approach of being like a sponge, and, there were some people who were just so generous with their time and would sit down with you. And, and other people who were just sort of busy and probably didn't have the time.
I was going to say, because, that's good that there were people that are generous.
Oh, yeah.
Because
not everyone.
The newsroom is, a tough place to be.
Yeah. And look, I think ABC in general is probably a bit friendlier than maybe the commercial environment. But I can't say that for sure because I've never worked for a commercial outfit. So I can't actually, back that up, but from what I've sort of seen and heard, look, the ABC's, has a fabulous culture, always has, and still does today. Doesn't mean it's perfect, no place is, but it has it's like a place full of really creative, intelligent, genuinely nice people. On the whole, it's just an amazing place.
Yeah. And what did you get to do on your internship?
Oh, I remember shadowing a couple of reporters, so in radio news, and that was good. I remember I spent most of my time in radio current affairs, which I loved. So there was a war had broken out in Lebanon, and I remember cold calling people, which was a good experience in that you're nervous, whereas now I haven't been nervous about cold calling someone in a long time. Mm-hmm. But, back then going, oh, gosh. But, I actually got to to help out because I stayed there for a few weeks. By the end of it, they were getting me to do stuff that was actually going to air. And I even interviewed someone. I found a family and did an interview, and I got dropped at the last second just because there was so much more news. But look, that was how it went. But I ended up getting a couple of stories on air on the World Today.
That's so cool.
So that was really cool because I'd sort of set that again as my goal. If I can kind of prove myself, then, a door might open. So
yeah. Now all Deakin students get to undertake, similar kind of work integrated learning experiences, sometimes internships, sometimes sort of simulated things as part of their degrees. So I guess what value did you find in a placement like that? And do you have any advice for students at the moment on how to get the most out of it?
Great question. And so I'm fortunate enough to have taught journalism, some journalism subjects at Deakin University, which I love doing. I'm not currently doing that because I'm doing my PhD, and I've said I've just got to finish that before I can teach again. But what I say to my students, particularly first years, but any year, it's start just doing stuff now. Volunteer for that community paper or outlet or radio station, whatever you can get on. Or, I'm sure Deakin's probably got some student platforms that you can do. Start kind of building that portfolio whilst doing your degree. And that's the best thing that you can do. So you've got those really practical skills under your belt as well as the degree, and you need both,
Yeah.
So, and I'd say that they're of equal value. So, yeah, work on both at the same time and hone your craft and use your lecturers and tutors to help. Like, these are people who are passionate. The reason why I love teaching is because I love watching people grow. And I always say to my students again, send me something. I can't read your assignment, for instance, before it's, published. But, I'm happy to give you feedback if you just got a question or if you've, written something else or whatever. Because, your supervisors and tutors, they really want to be there, and they love journalism and they love the craft. And so use that time and those connections. And because it's a passion, and I think you want to be as good as you can so that when you do get an internship, you can really just push yourself a little bit to actually try and get something published. And and if you get rejected, that's fine. I fell over a few times and things didn't come off, and it's not like I just was like, oh, and then this got published. No, there was. I remember working on a story in my internship, and I just had no idea of the time it would take, and it all fell over, and so don't be afraid to fall. That's the other thing.
It's such a big part of that career as well. Even like cold calling, most of those calls are not going to go through, or you might not get the quote, but you've got to keep sort of being able to be resilient and get back up again and do the next one.
Exactly. It's like feel that feeling of being uncomfortable, and that's okay. But then you kind of stretch and move through it, and then the next time you do it, it's not as hard, and then by the end, I've been rejected so many times.
Get ready for rejection.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
Is what we're saying. So you complete your internship and you graduate from uni. What happens next? And talk to us about what it was like to step out of uni and into the competitive job market in journalism. Yeah,
well, I was really lucky in that I went for a cadetship, and so I had a job lined up straight after uni.
Wow.
So I was already working. My final year, I was working as what was called a runner, which doesn't really exist anymore. And now
they get coffee, they get, scripts, they
correct.
Just do sort of errands around.
Yeah, absolute whatever you need person.
Yeah.
And it was a great job. And then I suppose the one above that is a production assistant. There's still production assistants today, but we need less of them because of technology. You can just do so much now. There are even most cameras and studios now are moved mechanically from the director.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, these starter jobs still exist, just unfortunately not as many. So I was doing that in my final year of university, about 3 days a week. And that was really hard because I was
at the ABC.
Yeah. And so I would work about 6 hours at night. So I'd study in the day, work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burning the candle at both ends a little.
Yes. I do remember talking to doing my final year project, which was kind of like a mini thesis, and just bursting into tears with my supervisor, and she was lovely, but just being, I was clearly stressed. And working myself too much, which is a problem I have.
Stop bragging.
Yeah. Well, it's not a good thing. I wouldn't recommend it. So I sat for the cadetship exam, and it's a bit of a process.
Yeah, can you just illustrate broadly? It is quite the event. It's sort of like a multi-stage. At least the ones I've heard about, kind of stage 1, stage 2, and they're all sort of like little tasks, little assignments, little pressure testing kind of things.
Well, it was quite a while ago, so it may well have changed, But the first one was an exam, and so you went to a venue and sat down and did this exam, and it was general knowledge questions about just general knowledge about the news, sport, just geography, the world, and then little writing exercises. Write a 3-sentence radio news story. Write with exam time pressures, and so that was first.
Your time starts now. My goodness,
that was the first one. The first one was an application where you provide all of that stuff, I think. So I can't remember, but there was an application, a lengthy application, an exam, and then there was an interview at some point, and there might have been another round of something as well, but I can't remember because it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Nearly 20 years ago.
But you got in.
I got in, yeah.
And you knew before you finished uni.
Yeah, I did.
Before you graduated. That's really, really cool.
Must have been around then. Yeah, it was the end of the year. I was super excited, but I knew that I had to move to Melbourne's because it's like a national pool, and there were 5 of us that year from Sydney. And so they kept one in Sydney, and I think they moved me to Melbourne because I said that I loved theatre and the arts, and that's why I think. And to me, this
Melbourne,
it was defined my life. Where I live now, where home is, it wouldn't have happened if someone in that room sent me to Melbourne.
Yeah.
In my head, I thought, oh, cool, I'll be in Melbourne for a year and then I'll come back to Sydney. That didn't happen. Yeah.
Well, so you moved interstate, and you have to move. How quickly do you have to move?
Well, I started in February, so I would have finished uni in November. I must have found out around November, December.
Yeah.
And then I started my job in February. So I had a few months, yeah.
And did they help you? Did you have to find a place to live and all that stuff on your own?
Yeah, I had to find a place to live. They paid for my stuff to get moved down, but I had to pack all of that up and find a place to live. I only knew one person in Melbourne, which was a friend of a friend who I'd met once.
Oh, my goodness.
And her name is Jane, and she is the most beautiful person in the world, and we're great friends today because I stayed with her for the first week. She'd only met me once, and she drove me around to all of my house viewings. We had the Melways on the lap before the days of GPS, and we became great friends, and I'll always be forever grateful to her for that.
Yeah. Wow. What an experience to get all that, move your whole life over at 21 or something like that?
Yeah, I was 21.
Early 20s.
21.
Incredible. So you ended up working at the ABC, in the end, for about, 10 years or something?
Yeah.
Can you take us through sort of the highlights of what you did there? You did your cadetship?
Yeah, I did my cadetship in Melbourne, and then they like to send you to the country somewhere. Went to Bendigo, which was great. And
lovely.
Again, if anyone's thinking about journalism, the cadetships, there's not that many of them and there's less and less these days. But if you can get a gig in the country, like on a country paper or radio station, go there. Because in the country, you really have to sink or swim. You'll cover anything and everything. big stories happen in the country. Yes, not every day, but I promise you they do happen, and then you'll get it. So I reckon I really got a bigger bite of the cherry when I went to Bendigo than that first year as a cadet, where you're sort of generally getting the smaller stories. So the whatever, you go to Bendigo, if it happens in Bendigo, it's yours.
You're on.
Yeah, so that was a great experience, and then got a job back in Melbourne about a little after a year later, in radio and TV. And, you know, it's funny looking back because we were the first cadets trained in both radio and TV. Yeah. So we were multi-platform journalists, which just seems like
and today it's like,
of course.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And was there one that you gravitated to more than the other? Because you mentioned radio before.
Yeah. Radio I've always loved. Like, I love the theatre of the mind. Like, you have to think about not having the vision. But then I love TV too. Yeah, because then you're like, you lead with the vision first. Mm-hmm. So you've got to switch your brain and go, what's my best picture? Start with that. And you write to that. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that. There's, I suppose I liked the freedom of radio. Like, you didn't need in TV, you're waiting on pictures. You've got to physically go there or get sent the pictures from somewhere. You're always like piecing it together.
It's almost like double the work in some ways.
Like more than double.
Yeah. You're editing. Yeah, you're literally editing audio and visual and pairing it together. And yeah.
But it's still super powerful. So I can't pick a winner. Oh, look, probably radio overall, but yeah.
Well, there we have it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was funny back then. It was like, you can do radio and TV. And they had to like train up the old, I only do TV. And there were some people who were really rusted on as TV reporters and rusted on radio. Yeah. But of course now that's all changed. And then we started doing online. I didn't start doing online articles for years later. Yeah. But I loved it. And I loved having like more space to tell the story.
Totally, yeah. They're no longer are there the set, bulletins or shows. And like, what are some of the memorable stories that you covered in this time?
Yeah, there was a lot. Probably Jill Maher is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the saddest one that I'll always remember. And I mean, she worked at the ABC, so she worked.
That's right.
On the floor below me, and I'd never really met her. I remember standing next to her in a queue at the waiting for a coffee at the cafe. But yeah, I covered all of that from go to woe, from when she was first missing. And, I just remember how shell-shocked everyone was at the ABC, and also all of the commercials. Like you'd be hanging out there with 9, 10, they were all there obviously, and they were all like, oh, this is awful. We're so sorry. Gosh, we hope she gets found. And then, of course, we find out the worst. And when police released, they had the footage of her walking along a street, and and to when the killer was in court, for the first time, that first appearance. And I always just remember her amazingly stoic husband in that, in that moment. Yeah, but it like even now, you can see I get sort of teary because it was just horrible and so real. And yeah,
that would have been a very challenging thing to cover, particularly with the sensitivity in that newsroom. And and I was the same age as her, maybe two or 3 years younger,
Yeah. So it's like
could have been anyone.
Could have been me. It was that kind of and just the impact on her family. And I remember the ABC made a diary, that we could all write in to give to her husband and family. Like I've never met him, but I just remember him so vividly from that time, and how stoic and amazing he was. And I can't imagine, what that must have been like.
Yeah. So moving on from the ABC a little bit, when does Deakin come into the picture for you?
Yeah.
I think you're doing your honours here or something. You can paint the picture for us.
So Deakin University came into view when I moved to Southwest Victoria. So I had always thought about doing extra study later on. I wouldn't have had any time when I was working in the newsroom, generally working 10 to 12 hour days. But then I moved to Southwest Victoria because I met my husband, who's a farmer. So I met him in Melbourne and ended up moving out to a little town called Caramit. So we're on a sheep cropping and cattle property there. And I, was working in Warrnambool at the ABC, at the radio station there, just sort of on these sort of short secondments. Mm-hmm. My job was still actually technically in Melbourne, and that was good. But was like, this could be an opportunity to maybe do a bit more study or maybe teach. So before I did my honours, I actually started teaching at Deakin. So I just at random reached out to a couple of Deakin University journalism scholars, and they used to teach journalism at the Warrnambool campus then. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to Professor Christy Hess. She was just made doctor, I think, at that time.
Christy?
Yeah, she's a legend and my supervisor for my PhD still.
Christy?
Yeah.
Hello.
And, she replied, which was great. We met up for a coffee and, I eventually started teaching media law and ethics, which was great, and radio, radio news. That was great. And then a year or two later, I thought, I'll do my honours. And I had a child and I was on long service leave from work. So I thought, I'll do my honours. And I did it over 2 years actually, because I had a child in the middle there, and like the flexibility of Deakin and being able to do it from home, being able to like research from home, I don't know, the younger generation realises just how amazing this is. Like when I was at uni at Sydney.
It didn't used to be like this.
Exactly. I remember spending all of my money, my 10-cent coins, photocopying books and borrowing books, and it would take forever to like access the information.
You just live in the library and you'd have to get it all done.
Yes, and you'd be looking at
lug it out.
Oh gosh, I've got to get that train, that last train, and trying to, and then you'd get home, you'd realise you'd printed off, only half of it, or you go, I've just wasted $4 on something that is irrelevant. But now you can access it all online. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible. And so you start doing that, and again, you had kids during this time.
Just one, yeah.
Just one, all right. And so when do you then move on to the PhD?
Yeah, it took a bit of time. So it took me 2 years to do a 1 year degree, but like just with that flexibility. I was doing it part-time, and then I took a break and then I finished it off. And I really enjoyed that process of doing it. And again, meeting Christy, she kind of told me about the pathway of doing a PhD. She said, you can do an honours and then do PhD, and an honours is, sort of less, and it's also like a mini PhD. So you'll learn the skills and So then I had a few years, I thought I just needed a bit of a break from study, and then I had another child. Mm-hmm. So I didn't start my PhD again until 3 years ago. So I finished my honours in 2020, just to start, and then 23 I must have started my PhD. So I ended up having I was intending to have like 1 or 2 years break, a little bit longer, but that's okay.
Yeah. Life happens.
Exactly. I'm not in a rush. And I know that I am interested in academia, and I think I'll always work in academia in some sense, but I also work in industry and love doing both. So I don't know if I'm on that trajectory to be a professor. Probably not. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'll have a fancy doctor title, hopefully, when I finish this PhD. But I think, I'm still a big question mark over that. Mm.
Yeah. More to come.
Yeah.
So what is your PhD covering?
Podcasting, would you believe, is one major thing. But it's local news sustainability in rural and regional Australia is its overarching theme. So it's part of an Australian Research Council project, which is looking at local news sustainability, and which is amazing to be part of. Like, I'm just like this little baby PhD that's part of this great big broader project with lots of other professors and people doing some great work. But I'm specifically looking at how news podcasting and or podcast journalism can be used in rural and regional Australia. Yeah, particularly because we're in this, I guess, news in local areas is becoming diminished because the business model's broken. You know, a lot of local newspapers have shut down.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're just no longer viable. All the money essentially is going to Facebook, Google, you know, your big tech giants, and the advertising money that used to flow to the paper from the local community is just flowing to these big tech giants. And no one has yet sort of cracked a way to make it work. You know, there are larger outlets who are providing local news, but probably not to the same level or standard that those local newspapers did. So, yeah, I'm looking at podcasting and as a way of understanding that, but also the power of conversation that podcasting enables, and how that's kind of changed our notion of journalism and what is journalism. You know, objectivity was king when I was starting out, and, you know, everything had a certain format. You know, the radio news, that this is how it was. You had, it was 3 lines and a grab, or a voicer, which is, you know, and it's still like that for the radio news bulletin. But the rise of podcasting, you know, has just unlocked another way of understanding the world and using journalism, which, yeah, is something that I'm looking into, because it's murky. It's kind of...
Well, yeah. And I guess my question is really, when you say conversation, are we talking about, say, the aesthetic almost of conversation, that kind of conversational, digestible way to receive information? Or are we talking about, you know, hot takes on the news? Or what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so probably more so that conversation of just the dynamic between two or maybe more people, that's a bit more casual, less formal, almost, like you said, yeah, more easily digestible. We've got a problem of news avoidance at the moment, and this is a more accessible way for many people. So, I mean, you're right in that a lot of news podcasts are two people talking about the news, and that's certainly one way of receiving the news, is listen to people talk about it. But another is the actual interview with someone who has information about something that is newsworthy or knowledge, or and that's an interesting one. And there's some academics called Newman and Gallo who have classified news journalism podcasts, and so they've got like that 20-30 minute deep dive chat. So if you listen to, say, like ABC News Daily, that would be it. You pick a topic, and it's great. I love listening to these because they just give me a good overview of something when I'm ready for it.
Yes.
But then there's also the extended chat, and interestingly, these academics include, say, the Joe Rogan show as part of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, he certainly wouldn't be objective. But this notion of objectivity is something that I think isn't perhaps as important as it used to be. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm not sure. But I don't think objectivity has never really been achievable, right? No one's objective. You can try to be as objective as possible or follow steps to try to be, but we all come from our own experiences and biases and interests.
Absolutely. Even, and it goes on down the line as well, even the editor that's putting the running order of something together, and you're kind of like, well, we're making a choice as to what the most important thing to know today is, right?
Yeah. But then, you know, there are plenty of people in podcast land who make no effort to be objective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and they are quite politically left or right or whatever, and they don't apologise for it. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic, what's happening.
Yeah, very interesting. And I guess, where is that sort of leading you in your journey with media at the moment? Are you still working across multiple, outlets as well as doing your course and as well as raising kids?
Yeah, so I am working just a little bit. So obviously doing my PhD. I produce podcasts myself. So I've got my own, which is called Ducks on the Pond, which is for rural women. I started that back in 2021. And it's, something that I love to do. So it's a podcast that we talk about anything and everything, just according to what it's like to be a rural woman. So we talk about business, we talk about farming, we talk about mental health, all sorts of things. And it's going strong. So I'm still doing that. And I make the odd podcast for people as well, like for organisations.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're a podcaster for hire or a producer for hire almost?
Yes, sort of whatever slot you need me to be. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And that's working well. And I work casually still for the ABC as a presenter, so I fill in on the Conversation Hour at the moment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've still got a nice little menu of different journalism experiences.
Yeah. And look, I'm just, I'm on the farm as well, and there's sort of responsibilities there. And my husband does like a lot of the on-farm stuff. That's not me so much.
So your life today and living on a farm, studying, doing a PhD, when you look back at finishing year 12, was this part of the plan?
No. Well, podcasts didn't exist then, for one. I don't know, that definitely the farm wasn't part of the plan. I probably would have thought I'd be a foreign correspondent or something.
Yeah, as every journalist does when they enter their course.
That didn't happen. But this is an adventure all the same, I think, being on a farm and being open to what life, offers to you, as well as, what you are striving for. And perhaps that's, a big lesson for me, being so kind of driven out of the gate. You also kind of need to look at what the universe is perhaps offering you too. And if it's not something that's in your plan, doesn't mean that you should dismiss it. You should actually look at it, maybe what opportunities does it provide? So it was a hard thing to kind of, I knew that my career would be very different to move to the farm. But, look, I was in love. What was I supposed to do?
It's so romantic.
It is. I made my husband get the internet, though. Like, he had a really bad internet connection. This was before the NBN. So he kindly did all sorts of strange, rigging up something to the roof and whatever, I said, I'm not moving until we get the internet. So he did that. And I feel like I just kind of was like, you know what, I'll figure it out as I go. I knew that I'd have kids and I just would figure it out as I would go. And technology has just been such a blessing for me.
Yeah, and it's really evolved. Even internet connections and the options that you have to connect has changed so much even in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's meant that I can work from home. And then COVID, as horrendous as that was.
Well, yeah.
It kind
changed
of
the culture around work.
Exactly, changed the whole culture so that I could do all those things already at home, but now it's just opened up all of these organisations. Mind you, Deakin was ahead of the game.
Oh, yes, that was their thing, right?
Yeah.
Flexibility and learning, where you are in a different way, in a remote way.
Because I was actually teaching in Geelong in 2020, and I think I did 2 lessons in person and then it all switched to online. But Deakin was already set up and I was actually already teaching one online course. So it wasn't too hard to shift. Had to change some of the assignments and whatever, the pracs and, remember you'd normally say, you can't interview your mum or you can't interview your flatmate, and then suddenly we'd be like, well, look, if that's the only person you're living with, then okay, yes, you can interview your mum.
Are they in your bubble?
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. It's just been some of those unexpected things. I'm glad I took the leap and kind of let go of the control a little bit.
Yeah. I guess that's the only kind of, do you have any extra advice for people? You've already kind of given it to new people, but just when you're so driven, if you've got a goal in mind that you want to reach and you're heading into uni or you're finishing school, what's your advice for picking the moment to sort of let go and let, the path sort of show itself?
I think it's really great to be driven when you're young because, you only know so much when you're younger.
Yeah. And you think
yeah,
everything.
But you don't know all the paths that might come. But what you can do is get a great skill or a great expertise in something. And then that can take you in all different unexpected places. Like, I didn't know that podcasting was going to exist when I studied radio. I mean, wow. Now I can do it from home. That's amazing. But yeah, so just kind of do what you love, get that skill, that qualification, that ability to contribute. And, your first job may not be the dream job. And I think I was just incredibly lucky that I got that dream job. It's possible, right? So that's the first thing. It's definitely possible, but there are so many pathways to get that dream job, and you might just have to take a sidestep to then get in. So I think being goal-oriented is super important, and I'm still goal-oriented today, but yeah, it's once you've got that skill, then you'll find more doors open and more opportunities come.
So what would a sustainable, thriving local news ecosystem for those areas look like to you?
Oh, that's like the $1 million question.
Yeah, if you could just answer that for us, that'd be great, and we'll just note it down and make it happen.
That's kind of like what the ARC, Australian Research Council project is looking at.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a nice, neat answer for you, but it would be great to have, local news that is built by the community it serves and operated by the community it serves, that knows its audience, and rural or regional news is kind of unique in that because the community is so relatively small, when you're the journalist, you really live in the community, you know the people whilst you're also reporting on them.
Yeah.
You have all these weird ties as well. So it's almost a slightly different form of journalism that I think happens in metros, and there's lots of people a lot smarter than me that have written about this already. So it's a really special dynamic in that it serves the population, in that you want local news to be able to tell you what the council's doing and if the council's not doing its job or doing something bad, as well as kind of being that ear on the ground, that way people connect as well. So it kind of plays that dual role of watchdog, but also community facilitator. So I want to see that, and I want to see that in a modern sense. It's traditionally been the local newspaper. There are newspapers that used to be 150 years old that are all shutting down.
Yeah.
But now we're in a world where there's so much more opportunity, like podcasting, online, digital, and yet we can't get the business model right. Like, there's no way of funding it yet unless perhaps we look at government grants or industry working together a bit better. So kind of dropping the competition, at least for rural and regional areas, to be able to support each other and share resources. So that's another way of doing it. So, yeah, but we need to find a model that is realistic, because we do find popping up, and in my study I'm looking at podcasting, and these little news podcasts have popped up, and they're often just kind of independent people who are really passionate. A few of them are retired, retired. One's a retired lawyer, another's a retired radio broadcaster who've just started doing it, or so that's these kind of passion things that really aren't earning any money. They might get some sponsors,
but it's not like sustainable.
Not sustainable, So, yeah, if we could just find a way. And same with online. There's lots of new little online things popping up. Some of them have been, have managed to become sustainable, but they're often still on that line of like,
Yeah, who are they? Are they checking the facts? Are they doing the reporting?
Yeah, but even just like funding wise, it's still like, okay, we're sustainable in that lens, but only just, and still really highly reliant on just like that passionate person, or or maybe some have like a wealthy benefactor that started it. So it's just, we need something that's sustainable financially, but again, serves the local community for the purposes of that community.
Yeah, you've mentioned a lot of little upstarts there of, a single person's initiative. I guess with your experience at the ABC and now doing podcasting and also trying to explore the format really of conversational content and news delivery, what's your opinion on institutions versus, sole proprietor entrepreneurs starting things? Have you found there are strengths and weaknesses in both, or one's better than the other?
Yeah, there are definitely strengths and weaknesses in both. I think institutional still has the credibility, and somewhat rightly so, as in if you are part of an institution, there are ways of doing things that can help, that give you that credibility of knowing that this is accurate, checked, as not biased as possible, or at least where they're coming from a bit more. But that said, why do we dismiss some of the independent people? Like just because they don't have the huge audience or the huge backing, because technically we can do so much on our own. You can be that one person who does all of the technical stuff as well as all of the written stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing in my research, in that I know of, and the only person so far that is treating all of these podcasts as news podcasts, whether you're an independent, whether you've kind of sprung out of a local newspaper, or you've come out of the ABC or Southern Cross Oz Stereo, you're providing news in a podcast format. You're kind of on that level equal. Even though, there might be big differences in production quality or audience numbers. Although, interestingly, there's not that much difference in audience numbers.
Well, yeah.
Not as much as you'd think.
Yeah, interesting. And there's all the potential in the world for something to hit, and people can find it.
Exactly.
And build its own audience.
It's rare, but it can happen.
Yeah.
You could be the next Joe Rogan.
You could be, and that's what we're all aiming for. And I guess finally, what do you hope that people understand about the power of conversation as a tool for connection and change?
I think we often hear that phrase, the art of conversation, and in this world of social media, we kind of use conversation or the word conversation in ways that aren't conversation. We'll say join the conversation, but it's really just texting in or writing a comment on an article. But it's not that real two-way interaction that is so nice, where, you're both invested and you're both willing to learn from each other. So, good conversation is where you are both asking questions, are both giving of yourselves. And it's really interesting in an interaction like this, right? I'd say this is a conversation, but you're clearly the interviewer and I'm the interviewee. But you're still giving of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing in podcast newsland, because a lot of the traditional news journalists are telling me they find that hard, of going, oh gosh, I have to feel safe to give an anecdote about myself, or
without coming off as biased or revealing too much or making it about you.
Exactly. So it is a weird kind of almost like a fake conversation, in that if we were just sitting down having a coffee.
Simulated.
Yeah. Well, I would be asking you some questions back.
Yeah.
How rude and weird would it be if I didn't? But podcasting is really harnessing what's good about conversation in that relational kind of aspect, the storytelling that comes with a conversation, the ability to just follow the train of thought, to ask those questions that are kind of a little bit off the list. So, yeah, and I just think it's so powerful because you actually create a genuine connection with someone.
Yeah, it's like authentic. It feels authentic.
It feels authentic, and I think it is. And with the people, particularly the independent podcasters I've interviewed, they talk about, becoming friends with someone after doing an hour podcast, or you see them down the street, you're going to say hello. Like, you've just got their life story. Like, yeah. So it's and another interesting thing is, for me as someone in media, the interview used to be something you did to feed into the article or the piece that you were creating. Whereas now with podcasting, it's no longer a byproduct. It's the product. It's the artifact. And so you, in this conversation, are the one shaping it. You're shaping the narrative, but you're making it seem like we're just having a chat. But I know what you're doing. You're shaping the narrative. Beautifully done, by the way.
Did we get that?
Yeah. And kind of using that, the art of conversation. And it's a wonderful thing if you can. I think it's a skill that anyone can learn, though. Some people kind of think, I'm not good, or I'm just not. You can learn it.
Yeah. Good advice. So across all your work, podcasting, research, regional storytelling, what impact do you hope to have on rural Australia?
The impact, I think, would be for rural people to tell their own story more. So I feel like that's what I'm trying to enable, in whether that's my industry work, where I'm helping other people create a podcast, or in my research where, we're looking at avenues to make it easier, or to get funding for, or, to set up their own thing. Because I think, that's my worry, is that we're becoming increasingly urbanised as a country, and then that divide between rural and urban can potentially get bigger as more and more people don't have that connection with rural Australia because their whole family's always been in the city, or they've migrated to a city. We need to know where our food comes from. We need to know what it's like to live rurally. And I love to live in a country area, but, getting into a doctor right now is really hard. You generally have to wait 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so you have to just go to emergency if there's something wrong. There's just different struggles that happen in the country, and it might not get picked up by metros until it's really dire, or if it is picked up, the nuance of the conversation may not be picked up.
And it's so much easier to sort of have those two audiences completely in their own bubbles with the way that the media landscape is.
Absolutely.
I've got some quick wrap-up questions here. So what's your favourite show on iView at the moment?
Oh, on ABC iView, probably Insiders.
Great answer. Great answer. Correct.
I do love Insiders still, and I sometimes miss it on Sunday mornings, so I love catching up.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one thing that you wish people knew more about agriculture?
That's a good one. That the people in agriculture really love what they do and care about the food that they produce. They feel proud of what they do, and so they should. And sometimes they feel that the city don't understand that. And I just wish that both sides could see it a little bit clearer. Agriculture is something that's constantly changing, and trying to, at the moment, there's a lot of technology that's being used to change things. There's probably more pressure around sustainability, and rightly so, and that's good. And I think most people are genuinely trying within the kind of realm that they operate. And I'd like other people to know that on the whole, farmers are often price takers, not setters. So much is beholden to, the weather, the global markets, and just the industry structures that already exist. So it's hard for a farmer to just suddenly change the way that they are doing something. And if they do change dramatically, they change everything, then you could lose your entire money for the year or farm. So change has to be incremental. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in agriculture, and I love it. I find it endlessly interesting. But I just wish, that people perhaps in the city understood how it works a little bit more. And I understand why you don't, because I was from the city. I had no contact with farming. So I didn't know what a farm looked like. I knew what one looked like, but a commercial operation, I wouldn't have known how that worked. And a lot of people are like that. And
we could all do it with a better understanding, I think, of that world.
And it goes both ways. People in the country, if you've kind of grown up there third or fourth generation, to assume that someone from the city would know such things, I think is unfair as well. I really hate when I watch a show, I love Farmer Wants a Wife, love that show and watch it religiously. But I cringe and feel horrible every time they make the women run around chasing sheep when they've never done it before, as if they should know how to do it. Why would they know how to do it? We should get the farmer into wherever those women are working and get them to do their job. That's ridiculous. Anyway.
Who knew Farmers Want a Wife? Farmer Wants a Wife, not highly factual.
No. We need more female farmers too, to be the farmer that.
Yeah. We're going to even it out.
It out a bit. Yeah.
Next PhD. Finally, you're on ABC News Breakfast quite a lot. I guess, who's your favourite presenter over the years there? You got Virginia Trioli, Michael Rowland.
Oh, that's mean. They're all lovely. No, and that's true. They are. Look, Michael Rowland is just, a stand-up guy. Yeah, Lisa Miller is great as well. Yeah. And look, some of them I didn't know as well because I may not have worked with them as much. But look, I'll give Michael the number one spot. Really caring, smart guy.
Yeah, there you go, Michael. Long-time viewer, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And my probably also because my children love him. I don't know why. They just took a shining to him at a really young age. And then when Michael said he was leaving News Breakfast, my youngest was devastated.
Aww.
Yeah. He's
you are missed.
I didn't know anyone else,
Well, that's nice. That's, if your kids like him, that's a really good endorsement.
Yeah.
Kirsten Diprose, thank you so much for coming on Stories of Wonder.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
That's it for this episode of Stories of Wonder. If you enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe. You can also join the conversation by leaving a comment below. You can learn more about this story through the links in the description. And for more conversations like this, check out the full series on YouTube or on your favourite podcasting platform. See you next time.